Good afternoon. Thank you for coming today. My name is Susan Kirk. I'm chairman of the Government Affairs Committee, and we thank you for being here with the weather the way it is. But it is important for us to have some time to talk about those things that are important for us. And we had something like this at the Yacht Club about 2 weeks ago. Some of the discussion and questions were guns, drugs, mental health, reduced taxes on food, drugs smuggled into the jail, red flag laws, election integrity, voting machines. It went on and on and on. So I hope we have some more interesting questions to pose for today. The Government Affairs Committee, it's a committee of 7. Our primary goal is to act as a liaison and advocate to the village. And so I would like to introduce our committee members. Where are you guys? Please stand up. We have Steve Packwood, Greg Reedy, Scott Black, Margaret Carroll, Mike Lynch, and Mike Paulson. So that is our committee. As I say, we are a committee of 7. So let me just describe how this is going to work. Each elected official will be given about 5 minutes to just give a brief opening statement, and then we're going to open it up for questions from the audience. And so I would like you to keep your questions as direct as possible. Please, not a multi-pronged 10-question answer that takes 5 minutes. We're trying to be as direct as possible in our questions. You can ask more than one question. We ask that you ask one at a time and then go to the back of the line and ask again and work your way up. This process has worked very well. And so we'll just go ahead and start. I do want to introduce who's here today, and what a pleasure it is to have our State Senator Art Swan with us today, State Representative Lowell Russell, and Monroe County Commission Chairman Paulette Sumi. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us and being up there for the panel. I would like to start right now with Senator Art Swan coming up, and about 5 minutes. And Margaret, give him a little hand signal, if you will, when he's beginning to run out of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here today. Just to give you an idea of where I come from, I'm a Maryville native, and my family's been here for generations. But you know, we all came here except the Indians. They were here first, and so they weren't real happy to see us. But it's great to see new people moving in the community, and I hope you'll feel that way about as more come, because they're entitled to their piece of the pie just the same as we are. But I hope today that we'll be able to touch some of the issues that are important to you. The important thing I think that our state does that most states don't is that we manage our money very well. And we have minimal taxes compared to what you go to other states and find. And we've gotten that because we're stingy with our money. and in government, that's hard to find. But that's the reason we're in the shape we're in. We don't have deficits. We can't have a deficit. And I think Washington can learn something about what we do here. But I'm not bragging on myself. I'm bragging on all my colleagues and the people that came before me that had principles about spending money and not spending something you didn't have. But good to be here, and I'll be glad to answer any questions when that time comes. You want to go ahead, Lowell?
You saved me the introduction. Thank you. Representative Lowell Russell.
Thank you, Susan, and thank you to the Government Affairs Committee and to the wonderful people of Kahiti. I'm actually your neighbor. If you heard me here before, I just live around the corner over there in Corntassel. I'm probably the only one that's went down to the House of Representatives and mentioned Corntassel, Tennessee on the House floor, so that was pretty cool to be able to do that. But how I started out in politics was sort of ironic. I ended up, after being in a tragic accident at work, I was a Tennessee State Trooper in 2012. My patrol car was hit by a tractor trailer, left me with life-threatening injuries, and I wanted to continue serving somehow or another, and after 5.5 years of physical therapy, I just started trying to find a new way to serve. And the current representative at the time, Jimmy Matlock, decided that he wasn't going to run again. He was going to run for U.S. Congress. And so I started going around the district and asking people what they expected out of their state representative. And after talking and getting feedback, I thought that I could fulfill that, and I put my name on the ballot. And ran, and that's how I ended up here. And I appreciate you all giving me that opportunity, those of you that live in the 21st District. But I can report to you tonight that Tennessee's thriving. We may not have 100% of what we want, but we've probably got about 80% of what we want. We are the lowest tax state in the nation, lowest debt per capita, balanced $56.2 billion budget while maintaining a AAA bond rating. Now, if you think about the difference of good leadership and bad leadership, all you have to do is look at Tennessee versus Washington, D.C., where in the last couple of years we've seen record high gas prices, 40-year high inflation, reckless spending, and crime has run rampant across our country. And that is a big difference that we can brag about here in Tennessee. Now, after I get through telling how good Tennessee's doing, I want to say that's because of me. I'm the state representative in the 21st District. But that's not true. It's those people that came before me, like Senator Swan, Lieutenant Governor McNally, Speaker Sexton, and all those that came before me. A big responsibility that I got, don't mess it up. And I won't with your help. And what I mean by that is I need I'm getting a little feedback. What I need is communication. I'm only as good as the communication that I've got for me to you and you to me. So if it's important to you, it's important to me. So I encourage you to reach out to my office, phone call, email, Facebook. In fact, I just got off the phone with a lady pulling up to the entrance a while ago, and she says, "I cannot believe you responded to my email at 2 o'clock this morning." And we took care of her problem about 1 o'clock this afternoon. But if I see it, I'll answer you. Like I said, your problem's important to me, or you wouldn't be calling me. Some things that we've done this year is Transportation Modernization Act of 2023, which creates choice lanes, takes toll roads completely out of the code, so we can't have toll roads, but it adds choice lanes that will be built alongside the major interstates and where congestion is bad. It gives $300 million to local road funding, we can also cut business taxes by $124 million. We prohibited certain countries from non-residents from purchasing real estate in the USA, like China and some other countries that are on the terrorist list. $800 million pay supplement for EMS employees, police and fire departments. When they complete their yearly in-service, they get a $800. Holiday food tax holiday. August, September, and October coming up. We provided $140 million for school resource officers for every school. We voted to raise teacher pay with a goal of a minimum pay of $50,000 starting out in 2026 for new teachers. Some hot topics for this year, of course, is that Transportation Modernization Act of 2023. You all probably heard about the third grade retention law that we did. That was a pretty hot topic. We are getting some of the appeals back. We created, I think there's 4 ways now people can go to the kids can go to the 4th grade. But I think that this Department of Education approved over 6,000 appeals this past week to allow these kids to go to the 4th grade. In 2023, we cut taxes over $400 million. And hopefully we'll cut them a lot more. We've got some business taxes I'd like to see reduced down too. So I'll be here ready for some questions, and hopefully I got some answers. So thank you.
Paulette, feel free right there at the table, and feel free to use that one. You can stand if you like, but actually sitting would be better for the cameras. But yeah, please just use that one for your opening statement. Thank you.
Okay, it's on. I'm Paulette Summey. I grew up in Von Orr. I'm a Von Orr girl. And I have worked for 2 Monroe County mayors. I worked for Charles Wilkins back in the 80s, and then Tim Yates in the 2000s. And I quit working for him after 4 years and ran for county commission. And the reason I ran for county commission was I felt like our end of the county needed equal representation. And that's been my mantra ever since. Von Orr area with the housing, and we have 6 gated communities, by the way, Kahiti, Rarity Bay, Legacy Shores, Tellico Harbor, Tellico Place, and Thunder Point, and all the little coves that have all the different communities. So we even have a retired district attorney in one of those coves up 72, by the way, Jerry Estes. But this has been something I've worked for since being in office. I was first elected 2014, and I continue to ask for equal representation. Again, the Von Orr area provides 66% of the entire county budget, and we have one county commissioner. We will have a school board member, and this is due to Lowell Russell and doing something that had already been done in Loudoun County. And it was something that was so important to me that last June, 4 days after having a total knee replacement, I went to the county commission meeting to ensure the resolution was passed to go to the state requesting that we get that school board member, because our children had been suffering for years. We had no representation. Von Orr has 2 schools, and it's the elementary school and the middle school. And when these parents had an issue with one of those schools, they call 3rd district, 2nd district, or 1st district school board members, "Oh, we don't represent you." So they had no representation. So, as they said, taxation with no representation. Well, that resolution did go to Nashville, and Lowell Russell helped push this through. I was in touch with his assistant TJ in Nashville, and she was amazing. And I told her, they kept coming back, "Paulette, we're not sure. Paulette, we're not sure. Lowell's trying this, Lowell's trying that." I said, "Well, there's an entourage of parents and myself waiting to come over." And she said, "Oh, no." Lowell said, "No, not them, not them." But they were ready to go, because this has been taxation without representation right here in our community. So Lowell got it passed, hallelujah. And we will get to vote for one school board member in 2024. But I'm not through. I'm gonna push. And in the last redistricting, we were cut, my district was cut, because it's the fastest growing district in the county. So all of Lakeside, which has been part of Von Orr for eons, for as long as I can remember and ever, was cut and given part to 2nd district and part to 1st district. Unfair, people, unfair. Because they would have had to given at least one more county commissioner had they not cut those people away from us. But the schools, going back to the schools, the kids from Cityco and Mount Pleasant come to Von Orr schools. The children in Lakeside and Little Mexico come to Von Orr schools. All of the children up Highway 72, if you've been up there, and no, it's a beautiful drive, by the way. So why? Why not? But again, I have to praise Lowell for standing by us and doing what was good for all of us, and I do appreciate him and want to give him all accolades for doing that, and I know he will. He's a good Von Orr boy. He graduated from Von Orr High School, as I did. But there's several things that we're working toward. You all had the reappraisal of the county. By the way, that's a state mandate. And the state is asking the counties that are having such large growth to do that reappraisal more often than 4 or 5 years. So they're asking Monroe County to go to 3 years. We haven't voted on that. And there's not gonna be a tax increase. With the adjustment of the taxes, it's gonna be 153 something, which should be about the same that you paid before. So I know you have questions about that, and I'll do my best. But thank you for being here, thank you. And I am sorry I wasn't here on the 25th of May. I was in Gatlinburg with county commission training, by the way. We are required to have so much training. And I go every opportunity that's given me because there's so many new things that are coming out, and I feel like we all need as much training as possible so that we can represent you better. Thank you.
Thank you, all of you. And so we're going to open it up for questions. As always, we look forward to civil debate and perhaps even a little lively discourse. We will remind you, keep it respectful, please. And at the end, we are going to allow enough time at the end so that if you have questions you want to take one-on-one up to the representatives or the senator, there will be a little bit of time for that. So be aware that that is in the works too. So who's got the first question? I have pages up here, but really I'd rather hear your questions. So if I have a shy audience, I'm going to start in on my list, but otherwise come to the microphone, please, and form a line. Yes. Your name, please, and who the question is for.
Jim Riley, it's for you, Paulette. Walk us through, if you will, the process to get another commissioner. You mentioned that they changed the districts. What do we have to do? What is the process at the county, or is that a state mandate?
Well, we will have to go back to the state and request. It will take a census, a new census, and I don't even feel like the last census was done appropriately because it was mail out, and we all know that people that get those little mail out cards aren't going to fill those out and send them back, let alone tell you that they have 10 people living in their home. Sorry, that's happening. But it would require possibly a federal lawsuit. And that's something I don't know how much it would cost or what that would entail. We would have to hire a lawyer that is familiar with federal law. Now, there was a gentleman that used to live in Kahiti that told me at that time, which was about 5 years ago, it would be about $380 to $550 to file a lawsuit on our own. Now, I don't know how much. As I said, that was that long ago.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Jane Miller. I want to thank everybody for your service. I really appreciate it. My question's for Paulette Sumney. I go to the county commissioner meeting as often as I can, and my question is whether you all hold workshops before the meeting, because what I'm seeing is very little information given to people to make a credible decision, and I'm wondering how they're getting that additional information to make a decision. I can't find a workshop notice.
We do have workshops, and those are open to the public as well. And they can be any time during the month, depending on what the topic is. And they do have to have a 10-day notice in the papers. And the notices are run in the Buzz. I don't know that much about the Democrat because they only have 2 publications, I think 2 or 3 a week. So it's usually their news is behind. So I don't know how often they use them for the public notices. And it's also on the website for those. And it will be on, we're having a workshop this Tuesday night, and they're an hour before the meeting. Basically, it's to confirm, because we've been in workshops for the budget, we have to pass the budget. If we don't, the state's gonna ding us. And Monroe County was one of the few people that had been no faults in their audits last year. So we're very proud of that and what our finance department has been doing. But you are welcome to any of those workshops.
Yes, your name, please, and who your question is for.
My name is Cheryl Blasey. My question is for Representative Russell. Last month, I heard about the special session coming up in August for the red flag vote. That was called by our governor. I was wondering if you could give us an update on that.
Well, I hope he changes his mind because I've continuously said I think they should appoint an ad hoc committee and talk about it this summer. But as of right now, he's not called one, and like I said, I hope that he changes his mind. But you know, if he calls one, I'll go down there and I'll work. I'll fight against red flag laws. I don't agree with them. There is some mental health money I think could be provided to build maybe mental health facilities. I've got a death penalty bill that passed this year that didn't get much attention. It allows the jury to execute people within 30 business days if they kill a mass amount of people using a deadly weapon, kill anybody on school property using a deadly weapon, or kill a first responder. I would like, if the call for the special session is big enough, I'd like to go in and amend that to bring the appeal process time down. So there's some bills that I would like to see in the special session get passed. Also, there's a bullying bill, so I can try to run it again. It failed this past year because I can't remember which committee it was in, but it didn't pass one of the Senate committees. And it basically makes reporting on bullying and prosecuting bullying for these kids a lot easier to report to the district attorney, because there's some issues with the privacy laws right now. So the SRO officers can't take the information from the schools to the district attorneys. So I would like to see certain bills like that passed in a special session, but not a red flag law.
And just a follow-up question, if I may. In preparation for the special session, the state representative for the village,
That's me.
Tellico Village?
Yes.
Up in the, okay. So there was someone else at that meeting. Anyway, is there anything else that we need to do as citizens of Monroe County to support you in doing whatever's necessary to prevent passage of that red flag law? I'm from New Jersey.
Yeah.
We had one.
Yeah.
We don't need one here.
So Senator McNally was probably
Yes.
the other one
Yes.
that was there. And there's a link that if you'll call the office or shoot me a message on Facebook or whatever, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
But you can go in there and make recommendations, and I'll be glad to send that to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Swan, do you have any comments you want to make about the red, you can use, okay, about the red flag session?
That's a tough one. When you have the situation we had in Nashville where those kids were killed, the last few months, and we've got to do something to deal with these automatic weapons that are available on the street. And right now you can own anything you want to, and it can be fully automatic, and you can go in and murder everybody in this room in a few seconds. And you know, we need to do something about keeping that kind of thing from getting into anybody's hands except the military. But I think you covered it pretty well other than that.
Okay, next question? Okay, I have one. I'll put it out there. It's just been announced about the amount of money that came to Monroe County in regard to the ARP funds, the American Rescue Plan Act, the ARPA funds. And so it was mentioned that money went to Sweetwater, to Venor, and to, it's through TDEC, and there was a third one. And so who would like to start with any comments about who got what and how they got it? But could you explain the process a little bit of how this money went from ARP funds to TDEC, requirements, allocating funds, and so forth? So who would like to address that first?
Not sure, but Monroe County did get some, and it's to help repair bridges. We have some old bridges, and Steve Tigg has done a good job of keeping inspections going on a regular basis. But we have some bridges that he needs to redo, and those are important. If you've been up 360, you know that the state, TDOT, has been working on the bridge crossing at Ball Play. going over from its 360, turn across at Ball Play Bridge, and then up to Tellico Plains. So that's one. But there's several huge tiles around the lake that I've been fussing about, that I'm hoping that some of the money, because going up 360, the huge tiles that TVA put in are now collapsing. And our local state is having to keep putting pavement on top and all sorts of things. And a few years back, there was a huge hole at one of those locations where my husband's trailer almost went under. And I have pictures of the hole and all. They were put up red lights, we're gonna make it one lane, all this stuff, and then it was like, uh-oh, this is gonna be a bigger deal than we thought it was. So it was patched over again and nothing done. But hopefully some of these things, but I know Steve is working on bridges and tiles. If you've been out Old Niles Ferry Road, he's been putting in tiles because those tiles are failing as well. And everything has more than doubled. And if you're thinking about gasoline, think about pavement. I think it's several $100,000 just to do a mile of pavement. So we're struggling even with the money that we got from federal government and the state. We gave Steve Tigg 9 cents additional last year, and he was hurting at the end of this year.
You're referring to Steve Teague. He's the
Steve
highway
Teague.
superintendent
He's
of roads.
this highway superintendent and takes
that
care
is-
of all the county roads,
That
not
is an
the state
elected
roads.
position.
Yes, it is.
Yes, okay. So it's good to know so much attention is being looked at for the bridges, because this is in regard to wastewater, stormwater. But please go first, Representative Russell.
No, I was just going to follow up on the grants. The Tennessee Highway Modernization bill we passed this year with $300 million going to the local governments. Monroe County should get a little over $3 million to work on these local roads over here, and that's through Steve Teague's office. I do keep a list of grants, try to every year, but Monroe County got an asset enhancement grant of $50,000, site development grant of $500,000, work-based learning grant of $25,000, Placemakers Entrepreneurship Grant of $70,000, Tennessee Downtown Improvement Grant of $15,000, Tourism Enhancement Grant of $75,000, Infrastructure Planning Grant of $50,000, and Telco Telephone Company, TDS, got almost $13 million in grants to go to broadband expansion. All of that's not going to be for Monroe County, but I'll tell you an interesting story. Whenever I got elected in 2018, one of the first grants I got to help on was the $1.4 million for the broadband expansion that actually got you all broadband here in Vonore, so that's pretty cool. So
We're going to take another question. I think you covered it, don't you?
Okay, so I do want to point out, in regard to the TDEC grants, the town of Vonore is addressing critical wastewater needs. They received $1,296,000. Sweetwater will be addressing capital improvements and a 1 million gallon water tank, $1,461,000. And Tellico Plains will be updating plant plumbing, electrical components, and addressing critical needs and significant non-compliance in the infrastructure. They received $1,519,000. So good job. Thank you for getting whatever your role was in getting this money to us. It makes a big difference. We hear a lot about growth and the infrastructure's lacking, and this is taking care of infrastructure. So yes, your name, please.
My name is Laura Sell, and I first just wanted to welcome Senator Swan.
Make sure you're talking right up to it.
Welcome Senator Swan to Monroe County. I've had dealings with him in Blount County, and I know he's receptive and thoughtful in his responses. Recently, the Tennessee Department of Children and Youth just came out with county snapshots, statistics of how we're doing with children and youth. And unlike our economics and taxes, our children and youth are struggling a lot. And particularly Monroe County is the second or third highest county for abuse and neglect of children. And we're also in the bottom quintile for children who are chronically absent from school. And I suspect that if we did better in those two areas, we wouldn't need to look at some of the other issues that we have with mental health and guns. So either Senator Swan or Representative, if you might address that.
Would you start first, Senator? Thank you.
Thanks for your comments. I'm glad to be here too. It is a difficult situation, and I think that we can handle it in the future in a better way than we've done in the past. That's I don't know really. Would you redirect your question just a second so I could better understand what you were asking about? Just a comment more than a, okay, I didn't think I heard a question, but I was trying to answer something that wasn't there. Thank you for those comments, and we'll move on, I guess, to the next question, if it's okay.
Yes, Mike.
Hi, Mike Polson. I've got a question from the live chat, and just as a comment in terms of anybody that's listening in on the live chat, to go ahead and put your question, and I'll be glad to present it to the panel. This one is from Ed Grolleman, and he asks, who makes the decision on redistricting? County, state, federal?
Want to start with that, Senator Swan?
I believe that's a state mandate that the counties do it. Am I correct? A state mandate and the counties do it. So it starts at the state level, but is handled at the local level.
So would that mean, Paulette, that the county commission approves on the county level and sends it to Nashville?
Yes.
Okay.
I was the only no vote.
Okay. And so, and then the whole redistricting question comes up for the assembly itself?
So the way it's done is every 10 years we do redistricting, and the state of Tennessee, as far as state government, does the House and Representatives, does the House district and the Senate districts, and also the U.S. Congress district, and the local governments does the local offices districts. And Paulette would probably know the number better than I do, but I think county commissioners represent 5,300 people, 5,300 people. Just 5,000. And as a representative, I represent just a little under 70,000, and Art represents just a little under 210,000, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Yes, please.
Jim Riley. I think this is for any of you because I work with Isaiah House, and we work with the folks, the young kids going into foster care. I understand there's been a effort at the state level to improve the DCS, and obviously that impacts what goes on here in Monroe and Minn County that I see. And no question there's a tremendous need for something because those workers are way overstressed. Would you comment on your observation about what's going on with DCS and what you think the future might hold for that?
So we definitely got to do something to fix DCS better. We got a new commissioner last year. An interesting thing about me during college, I worked for OmniVision, which is a foster program, and I would get one kid a week and take them out, and I was a mentor for 4 hours a week. And so anything that I can do to support, is it the Isaiah House? I've been to the one down in Inglewood that they built. Anything that I can do to help provide them any kind of grant funding, I definitely am going to stand by that. There was a question just a few minutes ago, or a statement about supporting our youth. If there is any kind of leeway in this special session, and I think that it might have something to do with public safety, is to teach these kids about social interactions in schools, K through 12. I think it should be mandatory for them to at least get 4 hours a month, or maybe even 8 hours a month, of some sort of social interaction skills that does not have anything to do with electronic devices. I think that would have a impact on these shootings. So, you got anything?
Paulette, any comments?
Our Sessions Court Judge, Dwayne Thomas, has a new program that he has started, and he's trying to keep people in the high schools that see these troubled children and start working with them before something drastic happens. And the county is funding that, and Judge Thomas had hired an additional person this year, which we approved as a county commission. And we are funding that out of our fund balance so that we don't have to raise taxes, by the way. To me, that's so important at this time. And we see the need for children. And if we can get more churches involved. I go to Von Orr Baptist, and we support the Isaiah House monthly. And anytime they need extra things, we continue to do that as well. So if you're involved in a church and have those abilities to do something like that, it's hard for it to all be government, because government, they don't get that care and love that I feel like you do from someone that's associated with a church, because we're loved because of who we are, not because of what we do. And that's what we need to let those children know at any cost. So Judge Thomas is doing a phenomenal thing, I think.
Thank you. No one's at the mic, and so I'll ask a question. Recognizing that you did increase teachers' pay to bring it more up to what it needs to be to keep good teachers and so forth, we still need to address the fact our students are really behind after the pandemic. And so how are we going to address that and make sure that with good teachers, the students need to catch up?
So absolutely, and I'm not on the education committee, but I don't know if you are or not, but so we've got to put these little benchmarks, or if we call it third grade retention laws, whatever you think. We got to have some sort of a gate before you go up to the next level, like this big talk on kids being held back. Unfortunately, that's been happening, but they are like tutoring and summer schools and things that they can do to get around that. But we got to put money towards educating these kids and make sure we got good teachers. You know, we've got some schools that's wanting to come in here from out of state, and I think that may end up happening eventually. We just increased Hamilton County to where charter schools are being allowed from Memphis and Nashville. Now Hamilton County's got it, so competition's good. So we just have to go from there. Anything else?
Okay.
I just might say, I grew up in Blount County, and Maryville City and Alcoa City schools were the best schools in the state. And I think the reason for that was we had a lot of people moving in with the Aluminum Company of America. And those people brought their knowledge and their things from Pittsburgh that we didn't have and that we didn't know about. And we learned a lot from them, and as a result, we've had the best school systems in the state for years.
Thank you. Yes, question.
So my name is Tyler Rafferty. My
And
question.
To who?
Oh, either
Both.
Representative Russell or Senator Swan. My question is regarding the Transportation Modernization Act and the choice lanes. From what I'm aware of, they're not toll roads. Is that correct? They're not toll roads, right?
It's good to see you back, Tyler. You was here last year, done a phenomenal job. And but you are correct, and it actually takes toll roads out of the statute, so they cannot have toll roads. But these are separate roads being built alongside what's either already there or above them.
Okay. So what would I'm assuming, because it's not a toll road that would be funded by people, like say like you have in places like, especially in the Northeast, you have like, you know, Easy Pass or whatever. Since the people aren't, you know, paying for that service, who would be funding it? Does it just come out of TDOT spending and their budget?
So it's a good question. It's a private-public partnership. So private companies would come in and build the roads, and then they would charge a user fee if you use them. But if you choose not to use them, you don't have to pay it. So it should alleviate traffic from what's currently being on the roads right now. In fact, I went up I-75 yesterday and had to wait in traffic from the 81 mile marker almost up to Watt Road. So I hope they build one around that stretch. So
Yeah. that'd
So
be good.
what you're saying is you only pay if you use it. It's user pay.
yeah, that's correct. And I don't know if they'll have a sticker on your window or what, but yeah.
And then a follow-up question, or like a second question, I guess. Where would you I know you said you would hope to see it like on 75, which I agree with you. I would too. But where do you know where these would be implemented? Is there a plan for that yet by the state?
So anywhere that's high congested would be the first place they would look at, and you may know more about it than I do, Art, but the last I heard, there's not definite locations yet, but it is where congestion is the most, is where they're gonna look at first placing them.
Okay. Senator Swan, comments on that?
I think you pretty well covered it, but yeah, I think it's just the lanes are in consideration right now, and there'll be some of them built in areas that are most feasible at this time. See how they work out, and then we'll see whether we go further with it or not.
And also, just from all three of y'all, just you're doing a great job for Monroe County. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
So let me just ask a quick question. To those of us in the car, if there's a fee, it's toll road. So how is this different than a toll road? Don't mean to be thick, but how did the assembly differentiate between that?
Simply, you don't have to use it. It's not like you have to go through this road. A toll road is where you have to go, like if you're going down I-40 to Nashville, and they have a toll booth, and that's the only way to get there. This is a choice lane if you decide to get in that lane to get there faster. And I think it's going to be a guaranteed minimum speed of like 50 or 55 miles an hour.
And can you be the only person in the car?
Yes,
As long
it's-
as you
yeah.
pay? You don't
So
have to have it?
that's different
occupied.
from that's different from a HOV lane.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yes, please.
Hi, John Tierney, staying on the transportation theme. I've got two questions. One's county, one state. On a county, Paulette, you mentioned that the culverts underneath Niles Ferry are being replaced. Is it going to be resurfaced in this year or in the future?
We're hoping so. Some of those culverts are pretty rough going across them. Kind of jar you when you do. When they put the pavement down, it has to settle some and pack down. And with the expense of complete paving, I don't think it's going to happen right away. I think he'll do as much as he can and make it as smooth as he can, as long as they can do that. And I forget the quote that he gave on tiles when he was preparing his budget for us this year, but it was quite substantial, and he was needing more money after us giving him additional 9 pennies. And 9 pennies from the county budget is about $95,000. So that's what, he got close to $1 million extra. And he said he was still in desperate need because of the expense of what fuel, tar, rock, tile, you name it, was costing him. And another word, if you've been to Atlanta, you've seen some of those easy pass roads, and they are easy pass, and you just exit off of them, and they're real simple. I have family that live down there, and they say it's very convenient, but they don't have to use it all the time.
And your state transportation
Yeah,
question?
my question relates to Route 72 and 322. I understand there's a state road project to improve 322 and realign the intersection with, is it Excellence Way that comes out of the industrial park?
Yeah, the second traffic
And
light.
I guess I've asked this question a couple times in the past, and there is property that needs to get acquired, and I don't know where we are with that project, because we do have a little bit of a traffic jam there when they let out the industrial park there.
Oh yeah, you're preaching to the choir. In fact, so we're in a
Softball.
we're in a 24-month window right now where we're acquiring. I say with TDOT's acquiring the property, and they're supposed to start construction in 2025. In fact, I just noticed Rick was here. He and I just had dinner at lunch at Charlie Hall's the other day, and I'm going to hate to see that being replaced. I hope they end up rebuilding, but I don't know if they will or not. But yeah, 2025 is when that's supposed to start. I will tell you about Niles Ferry Road. Like I said earlier, I just live around the corner. I was down Niles Ferry Road twice today, and I'm hoping out of that $3.5 million the county's going to get that they'll pave that this fall. But I've not talked to Steve about it, but that's definitely rough. If you think that your state representative eats real fancy, I go to Sonic and Crystal, so I'm out that road every single day. So
Thanks.
thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Do we have any idea how much Tennessee farmland is Chinese owned?
That is what?
Chinese owned?
Ooh. I don't, but I do know that we passed a law this year that we are not going to allow any adversary countries to purchase land in Tennessee. But I can find that out if you'll shoot me an email.
Okay. Another kind of a zinger type thing, but with what's happening with sports teams and so forth, taking issues that they don't need to take in the political culture that we have, why should we continue to fund sports stadiums with taxpayer money when they're doing things like that?
So the reason I think Nashville's, I think the state give them $500 million in bonds, which is ultimately around $50 to $75 million in money. It's like an investment. Even though that's right there in Nashville, the money actually goes throughout all 95 counties, because it's like most people, I'd imagine, that comes here in Kahee and retires are probably business people, and how they invest. And that money that comes into Nashville is actually going to be spread out all across the state eventually.
Okay. And we have a question. Yes.
Hi. To whomever can answer the question, is there an update on the water park?
So Paulette may know this. I didn't even know anything about a water park until our last meeting with the mayor, but so,
That's
and
why
I
he's
live
not
here,
here
so.
today.
To my knowledge, new investors, the last investors bailed out or failed out, we're not sure, but they do have new investors from Miami, Florida. Sequoia Landing restaurant reopened as Mud Puppies, I think. And we went by there in our boat Sunday, and it looked like it was full. They are open on Sundays, by the way. The Cherokee Indian Nation is very interested in moving this along, and they want to see it going, but as I said, the investors are new, transition time, so there's been changes. Doug Patterson, that was running Sequoia Landing Restaurant, was moved to Countryside and the marina over on 72. So there's going to be good food if Doug Patterson is there. But I haven't been to Mud Puppies, but it had been a great place there. So we're hoping that it's going to move along, but that's going to mean lots more traffic for Vonore. And if you've been out on 411 recently, even with 4 lanes, I was turning right, guys, and I sat there for 5 minutes. So I know what it is down at Niles Ferry too. But turning left, I don't dare. I just go turn right and then go down somewhere and turn back. But traffic is already heavy. And if you've noticed, Vonore only has one way north, and that's 411 because of the lake. If you want to go to Loudon, of course, you go down 72. But that's one of the detriments, and we're hoping that 72 will help with the trucks, the big trucks and everything that are coming across the little road that's going through the Fort Creek area and everything, because it's a madhouse with all the little curves. The motorcycles would love the curves, wouldn't they? But it's not fun meeting those 18-wheelers when you're going down there.
Do you know when the new investors, the new owners came in? Is it just recently?
Just the first of the year, and I'm not
Okay.
sure if it was January, February, but there was a lot of changes
Okay.
there.
I know some of them were marina changes, and they were pretty
Yes.
concerning. So,
Yes.
and so they've come in since then. Okay, okay. Another question. Across the country, we're being shown on TV and network news and so forth, students are being held to a higher, our citizen students are being held to a higher standard. We have illegals coming into the schools that are not vaccinated, not screened, have not had their shots, and yet the citizen students are being told they need to meet all these requirements. How do we even this out? How are we fair to the taxpayers, the citizens who are here?
Well, for first, I don't think anybody should be going to the schools that's not here legally, but that's just my opinion. I don't know. Art, you may. But no, I mean, my thing is if you're not here legally, you shouldn't be in the schools.
And so will this be addressed in the assembly next session?
I'm sure we will. It's always an issue, and it'll be back up, and it ought to be back up because it's a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I proposed a bill about unauthorized immigrants being in Tennessee. I basically had to not pull it, but just stop the movement of it because I didn't have the votes to get it out of subcommittee. And if I can get it out of subcommittee this next year, I'm going to try to run it. And it's just a reporting, and you can look it up online, but it basically lays out a way of reporting and investigation of unauthorized immigrants in the state of Tennessee. And I hope we can get some traction on it, but we'll see.
Thank you. Yes, come forward, please.
Before his question, the county is having to hire translators, not only for the jail, but for the school system, because these children have no way of understanding English. So we're forced to increase our budget by hiring these new employees. And it's all over, I'm sorry. But it comes straight from Washington, D.C.
Go ahead.
Hello, Ed Grolleman. Well, you know me from helping with the TDS grant here, and I also helped with the TDS grant down in Telco Plains and stuff like that. My question is, as we all helped TDS and brought money in here and got state funding for this, they just really jacked our rates up in the last 2 years, almost double in some cases. Well, how can we get more competition in here? I noticed the other day they're running fiber down Niles Ferry. I believe that's Charter that's doing that. How can we get better competition in here to keep prices down?
Well, thank you, Ed, and thank you for your help on that internet too, in the grants. But I think, just like you said, competition, you got to get these companies that wants to come in and provide it. In fact, I think they ran some lines to Kahidi and didn't leave like some options for accessibility for new lots and things where people moves in.
Oh yeah, that was a big problem. TDS didn't even finish
Yeah.
the whole loop originally, and you helped us get that resolved in
Yeah.
January and December and January of last year. Yeah.
So the big thing is just being able to sell it. They got, like earlier I mentioned that they got almost $13 million to expand broadband. It looks like they can do a better job at it, but it's just
Well,
business.
one of the things I'd like to see is more partnership with like a T-Mobile, US Cellular, because the 5G can provide that competition, and in areas where fiber can't go. Especially in some of the rural areas, it's easier to put up a 5G antenna than to spend millions of dollars on fiber to it.
Yeah, I've heard about the little hotspot antennas on the utility poles.
Yep.
Some people like those really well, but I don't know how I'm not a real technical guy as far as I got somebody else checks my email a lot of times, but
But no, I mean, if I would say both Paulette too, it's something for the county to look into, because we are a rural county, and to have more wireless access like that, would provide better service for the county.
The county did get money, COVID money, and we are spending $1 million up in ball play, trying to get better cell service
Yep.
for anyone back in the mountains. We're to build a tower
Yep.
up there. We're also building a tower in Sweetwater because Red Stag is coming over there. And telephone service cell service on I-75 was lukewarm. And this is to help that. Even the police were not able to get out when they were needing help in dead spots. So this tower over there will help them as well. And we have, so that's $2 million. And we've put another $1 million towards some other improvements too. New radios for all the policemen. We're trying to make sure that they are armed as well as they can be, but protected and have what they need in case there is an emergency, that they can at least call somebody for help.
Yeah, on the radios, I know that firsthand because my sister-in-law is an EMR here, and I know we got 5 new radios, but there's 10 EMRs. So, I mean, would they be able to get some additional radios in the future?
That's through your sheriff, Tommy Jones. Now, he may have some older radios that you might be able to use in the meantime, but they're very expensive. And all of them are supposed to be on the same system so that it'll be more conducive to everything. That means the city police department as well as the county. And we're hoping that when they get all of that squared away, plus new cars, by the way, that it'll be for the protection of our people that are out there. And we know they need that protection.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, all of you, for being here. Although I live in the main village, I am a property owner in Monroe County. So my question is actually for all 3 of you. I'm a big proponent of Republicans picking their candidates and Democrats picking their candidates. When is Tennessee going to close the primaries? And Senator Swan, I think I know where you stand, Representative Russell, and Ms. Sumi, could you tell us your position on closed primaries in the state of Tennessee and when
Let's
we
start
can
with
expect
Senator
that to
Swan,
happen?
please, and we'll work our way down.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they ought to be closed primaries. As a former chairman of the Republican Party in Blount County, we dealt with an issue. We're a big party in Blount County, and percentage-wise probably made 2-to-1 difference with the Democrats. But I represent Democrats and Republicans both, and I hope you all recognize that I take that in. As just because I'm a Republican doesn't mean I don't represent Democrats too. But closed primaries, I'd be in favor of that. I think it's good to go through the primary system, and I think that's the best way to do it.
And I agree with what Art said, and Rick, I appreciate the question. And in a roundabout way, get this, Tennessee's already got it. It's a Class C misdemeanor to vote in the opposite primary. We actually passed House Bill 828 this year that requires the officer of elections at each polling place to post a sign on Election Day informing voters that it's a Class C misdemeanor to vote in a political party's primary without being a bona fide member of or affiliated with that political party, or to declare allegiance to that party without intent of affiliation with that party. So that was House Bill 828. So a lot of it's about enforcement. You got to be able to enforce it.
We all know that people have gone in and changed the registration so they can vote in primaries, hoping to get the weaker candidate. And it's happened here. We've all seen it. So closed primaries are very good, and we're going to have to start stepping up and doing some prosecutions.
I know this has been proposed before and it's failed. Do you know why it has failed in the past?
Not really.
Will it keep coming up?
I'm sure it'll keep coming up. I'm not on that committee, but I would support it if it came before me to vote on it.
Okay. Yes, please.
I just was at a meeting a couple of years back where they said that only 3 districts or 3 districts, I think is the right word, in the entire state have a competitive district. That is, if there's any chance of somebody from the opposite party winning. With that in mind, you know, sometimes we don't even have a candidate running in the opposite party. So if you do closed primaries, essentially what you're saying is that anybody that's not a member of that party doesn't get to vote. Well, it's just in the primary, but that's where the candidate is selected. And if it's unopposed, there's no opportunity to vote for anybody else.
Ma'am, ma'am, I'm going to stop you right there. If you can bring your question forward for discussion, but we're not going to have debate from the floor. So, someone else next? Okay, I have a question in that it came up when you were here for the May 25th about the fact that we have a 2-year cycle to our assembly system. When a bill is introduced, it can be carried over to the next. Would you explain how our 2-year system works? A lot of people do not know we have that or how it works.
You want me to do that? Yeah, you go ahead. The 2-year cycle goes back to the origination of our state. It was hard for people to get to the polls, the long distance by horseback or by walking. And so, you know, it was put on a 2-year cycle. And as time moved along, we went to a 4-year cycle on the governor. Because governor, when I was a kid, was 2-year cycle. And you had the Democrats had control at that time, and they would run one guy 1 2-year cycle, and then his buddy would run the next 2-year cycle, and then they repeat it again and again. And that went on for several cycles in several administrations. So the system we got now works a lot better than the old system did, and I think it gives us the best representation.
Yeah, and what happens is every 2 years these cycle changes. Like right now we're in the 113th General Assembly. So anything that I present this year as far as the bill goes can also be voted on next year if I don't run it this year. And every year in the House we get 15 bills that we can present and file, and then the next year 15 also.
Any questions on that? Okay, with no one at the mic, I've got another zinger question for you. Why are we providing tax incentives to big manufacturers when they're working with China to get the parts they need? Again, we're working with China, why?
So which companies?
Car companies, manufacturing companies, any of the companies that want incentives to come into our state, et cetera. If they're working with China, why are we allowing this?
So specifically, without knowing, you know, if it's
I don't
about
either,
the,
I just have a question.
yeah. So if it's about like the Ford plant, the reason I voted for that is the same way with a football stadium, is because the money that comes into the state is going to be distributed all across the rest of the state. It's like I said earlier, it's like a business. Most people that's retired here is because the investments that you made, the money that you made from the investments funded your retirement, and that's what's going to happen to keep our taxes low, to bring businesses in. And I think that overall it's a good system to give incentives, get people working, because we surely don't want them to sit at home drawing a check, and we have to pay to keep them up and pay for their insurance. But Art may have something better. I will tell you this. Before I file a bill, if I know it's going to be pretty controversial, I'll go talk to like the subcommittees and see if I've got the votes to get it out. And if I don't, I usually don't file it, because I can work on something to get passed that I can make the state and the district better. In fact, back in 2021, I had the great idea that I was going to present a bill to make all voting machines have components inside of them American made, until I learned that I didn't have the votes to get out of the committee, because most of the chips come from China. We wouldn't be able to do it. So that's why I didn't run that one.
Comments, Senator Swan? Any comments on that? Okay. And can you update us on the standing for House Bill 1116?
So 1116 was going to be a a transfer fee, like if people buy this comes into the village, they would have to pay $2,500 to the POA. That bill has been just basically put on hold. It's sitting there. I've had people more against it. I always tell people whenever I decide to vote on a bill or run a bill, I always ask myself what makes common sense, what does my district want, and what's the best for the state of Tennessee. And it was overwhelmingly that the district didn't want it to. I think RU is probably the Senate sponsor on that bill, so we just basically stopped it. Since then, and in all fairness, I don't think Chet knew how quick that I would file the bill, because he was planning on going and talking to the people of the village, and it may have been my fault that I didn't explain to him how quick that I've tried to file things and get it out there, because we've got a deadline to file bills, and if we don't file it within a certain time, you can't run it for the whole year. So anyways, so it's not going anywhere as of right now. And you got anything on
Do you
that?
expect it to be filed into next year's assembly?
It's sitting there, but to run it, it would have to be an overwhelming majority of the village that's for it. And I can understand, and some of it would have to be changed, because after talking to the people, I can see some problems with it. You wouldn't want to buy $5,000 or $10,000 lot and have to pay $2,500 for a transfer fee. So that don't make any sense. So it had to be changed quite a bit to run it, but it would have to be something the district would want me to do before I would run it.
Yes.
Hi, Mike Paulson, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse here, but can you go into detail on what the red flag laws are or would be, and specifically why you're against them, Representative Russell?
Yeah, so he's got a big fancy name for it. It's like an emergency something or another. And so basically, I think the way it was written, and I'd have to go back and look at it, it's like 13 pages, and I didn't bring it with me, is it really doesn't do anything. It takes the guns away from people. It don't get people a good, positive mental health treatment. The way I read it, I'd have to go back and read it again. Like I said, it's 13 pages long. And I think that if we could do something, if it's serious enough that we're going to go take their guns away, it's serious enough that they have to go into a facility and get treated. I mean, to go in and there is a little due process, but I don't necessarily think that what I read at the time was enough, where you go in and start taking people's property away and not giving them a good protection against the Fourth Amendment search and seizure rules.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm very concerned about what's happening in this country, and I consider a lot of it just evil. These shootings in these school playgrounds and going to buildings and all this is horrible. I mean, we've got to do something to stop that. And I think if we do a better job of just handling that people don't make guns that are for military purposes go out into the street. If you can kill 100 people in 10 seconds with an automatic weapon, then that's an exaggeration. But you know, we don't need that in the general population, and I'm not sure we need it even in the military. But that's where most of our problem is. We don't want to get to the guy that wants to carry, and as a responsible citizen ought to have the right to do that, unless they've seen something in their past that showed they're not responsible for having a gun. That's a different thing, but we don't. I don't see the state going in any direction that we're gonna do anything to change what's been our exercise all these years.
Okay. Money was allocated for more SROs in every school, but originally SROs came from the sheriff's department. Do they still? Because there's the impression that these are deputies, but are they all certified deputies, or are they, some people have claimed minimum wage people not really qualified to carry a gun. So what good are they? So clarify that for us, if you will.
So this year we provided $230 million for school safety. Since I've been in the legislature in 2018, I've either sponsored, co-sponsored, or voted for over $700 million for school safety, and that's the form of SROs, equipment, or mental health money to provide mental health to these K through 12 students. And so the school resource officers can either be the sheriff's deputies or they can be city police officers that's in a contract with a school. And ever since the Covenant shooting, Governor Lee was pretty much committed to providing money to protect the schools, and that's where that $230 million came from. In addition to having a SRO in every public school in the state of Tennessee, Tennessee will also have one Homeland Security agent per county. The sole responsibility is to oversee school safety, and I think that that is going to start being pushed out after July 1st, which is the new fiscal year for the state of Tennessee. That's where the new budget goes into effect, and I believe by July 15th is when the hiring process, as far as applications, will be taken, and as far as the grants around July 15th also. And there is a school security officer. Don't get that confused with a SRO, because a SRO is a post-certified law enforcement officer. A school security officer, which will probably make a little bit less money because they don't carry that certification, that might be where the lower pay comes from.
That's where there's some confusion.
The town of Vonore had been paying, we only had one SRO officer, and she was pushed back and forth between the elementary school and the middle school. And the town of Vonore paid 50% of her salary per year until this money came this year. So she is now full-time with the sheriff's department, and there will be another one for whichever, if she's at the middle school, there'll be a new one for the elementary school. So Vonore will have two SRO officers for the first time.
Rick, go ahead.
A question about the mental health money that's being proposed. Is there a money allotted, or is there a study coming on the effects of these hormonal treatments these people are taking, genital mutilation drugs that these people are taking, steroids, etc.? Are we examining that as well? And is there a bill that's going to be introduced that will study that?
So I asked that question back in 2019 or 20, and I can't specifically remember what the Department of Health said, but I will find out, Rick. I promise you I will, and Art may know.
I don't know. You know more than I do.
But there was a shooting in 2019 or 20, and I asked that question about if this prescription medication these kids are on today is causing some of this, and they told me, and I just can't remember. But I do know that most of the kids that are, or I say adults now, that are going back and killing people has been bullied at some point in their life, and that's where I came across the bullying legislation I'm hoping to run.
Okay. As long as we're talking about children and so forth, what is being done from the state to help the counties in regard to keeping inappropriate material out of the school libraries? Not the county, the school libraries. There are some very questionable books, and parents are very concerned that they not be available in the curriculum or in the school library. So what's being done for that?
So I'll try to go off memory here on this one too, because I'm on the education committee, but I think it was last year we passed a law where the books can be challenged, and they give them like 30 or 45 days to be reviewed, and then they go on a list, and that list has to be submitted, I believe, to the Department of Education, but Art may remember more than I do.
I don't know that we can improve on that very much on what you're talking about there, but always open to input from the community about how the best way to do that. We don't have all the answers in the legislature, and we don't pretend to, but maybe some of us do on occasion. But at any rate, I'd love to hear from you before the session starts if you have some great ideas. I'd like to
I've
hear.
been forwarded some pictures, which I'll be glad to send to your offices, and you can see what can be done about that. My understanding is so far the reason that they've not been able to get it out of the schools is because they've done it in a cartoon feature.
Yeah, and I would recommend also addressing it to their local school board members, because I think that may be where the initial complaint may be filed, and then they investigate it.
But can something be done to attach the ability of schools to get their funding or not their funding if this material is provided in the schools? If they actually allow it and it should not be, can some of their funding be cut?
I can't specifically remember on funding to that. I know that a couple years ago we banned critical race theory being taught in the schools, and if it is and the complaint is valid, the Commissioner of Education can withhold funding for that, but I don't know about the books.
Thank you. Yes, Mike.
Thank you. Mike Lynch. I'm a resident over in the main village, so at least I'm represented by one of y'all. But I have a general question which goes back to the beginning of the discussion today, where each of you have alluded to the state's fiscal conservatism and the state's fiscal management. So I can't speak for what's happening here in Kahiti, but over in the main village, it's reported that 50% of our population moved here in the last 5 years, and they're all coming from states like myself. I escaped one up north, but there are other people who have moved here because of the low taxes. But then when you're in a room, they say, well, why doesn't the state do this? And why doesn't the state do that? And why doesn't the state do this? Or the county? Don't you all and your counterparts have a responsibility to remind us all publicly, not just in these small events, about the culture of Tennessee, about its fiscal management? At our committee meeting, we had an individual attend, and they went on about, you're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong, et cetera, et cetera. And it turns out that individual was from a Northeast state. And the question I asked her was, didn't you do your due diligence beyond taxes before you moved here? And she sat down. But it seems to me that you and your counterparts have a responsibility to publicly remind all of us about the culture of Tennessee, particularly fiscal management. And I'd like to know what you all would do to address all these folks that are coming in to save on the one side, but who want to proliferate on the other.
This actually came up 2 weeks ago in the yacht club. A woman came up and indicated how happy she was living in the village, but now she wanted this. Do you remember that, Representative Russell?
I do. And
I understand fully your question, so let's hear your answers,
Yeah,
please.
and I know Art wants to say something on this too, but I just wanted to say, Mike, I appreciate the question. And I always live by the rule that Senator Howard Baker always says, the other person may be right. And I'll talk and listen to everybody. And although we may not agree on every single thing, there might be something that somebody says that I agree with. It's about earlier, the red flag laws was brought up, and what my thoughts were. So the second thing I always say about that, I always say, number one, it's got to be handled at a federal level, because with the states having different laws, somebody can drive across state lines and do whatever different than the other state and come across the state, do whatever in 30 to 40 minutes. Now, the second part of that is the other person may be right. Although that we may not agree on every bit of what they say, we deserve to sit down and listen to whoever. And the third thing is, I think, as far as the red flag laws go, is we can all agree that neither party has been too impressive on addressing the situation. So I know you want to say something.
I'm not sure you didn't just cover it, but I might say, we all moved here from somewhere, and the Indians were here before we were. And our tolerance of each other ought to be the most important thing we do in our community. Listen to our friends and our neighbors, and the comment that the gentleman made was very appropriate. I don't think we fully appreciate what we've got. We've got a well-run state, well-financed. We don't tax a lot. You have a lot of choices about whether you're taxed or not if you spend money, but not if you keep it and try to save it for yourself. And that's the advantage of living, I think, in Tennessee, besides it being a great place to live in climate-wise and otherwise.
Paulette, do you want to address that with the local comments?
We're challenged every day. You don't do this the way we did it. And my comment is, thank you for moving here. We're glad you're here, but we're trying not to go in debt because debt is not good for anyone. And in fact, at the county, we are trying to build our fund balance because we know we're going to need schools, we're going to need new buildings, who knows? So we've got a rainy day fund that we're working on all the time. But for frivolous things, that's not absolutely necessary. It could be a convenience. Yes, it would be nice, but we've come a long way. We really have. And not only the state, but the county is growing, and we know we have growing pains. So bear with us. We're trying.
Thank you. $50 million was allocated for the Violent Crime Intervention Program. Do you have any ideas, any part of that being earmarked for mental health programs?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd have to check on that.
Okay. All right. Have some leaving. Anyone else with a question? Okay, let me see what else I have here. Anyone else, other comments? I mean, I could go on with questions, but we're almost ready to wrap up anyway. If you'd like, Paulette, we can start with you. Any closing comments you'd like to make?
The one thing about mental health, and it's a concern for all of us, there's issues we see in family, friends, whatever. We don't know if it's drug-induced or, trauma in someone's life. It is an issue, and we're hoping that something will be addressed. The county itself cannot build a facility. It's something that Lowell and Senator Swan, I'm sure, are contacted about every day. But it costs the county 2 deputies to take a person that is incarcerated and is determined that they're mentally incapable in some area. We even have a padded cell, and we had one guy that was so bad that he ripped all the padding off the walls, and it cost us $87,000 to replace that and get the padded room. So it's a need. And it takes a deputy to drive and someone to go with him. So 2 deputies and a car is out of commission every time they transport one of these people that need a mental facility, and that's either in Chattanooga or Memphis, I think, is the only ones that we have.
Representative Russell?
So I want to say thank you for having us out here today. It's important to me to be here with you all. I tell you, I didn't realize how much Kahidi does and the whole Tellico Village community does until I ran for office. And the what you all do to volunteer to give back to your communities is just impressive to me, and I really appreciate each and every one of you all for that. I took a few notes here. As far as radios, check with your EMA director for any additional radios. Chad Lemming, he may have some for the fire department and rescue squads that he can give out. I think those things cost like $7,000 a piece. Last time the evacuation route came up here at Kahidi, and I had mentioned you might be able to go here on Chota View Drive and work out some sort of a right of way, but also Toqua Lane that comes out over here, the little gravel road. They got a gate on it. You have to work it out with TVA. That would be a good second evacuation plan. Art and I did put in to widen Highway 72 west from Rarity Bay to 411. they're going to study that and maybe add that turn lane in all the way up to Rarity Bay, and hopefully that will help alleviate a little traffic. Art and I've also got a bill that's going to require history to be taught in the 5th grade instead of the 3rd grade. Currently, some geniuses down in Nashville is wanting to change your Tennessee history to be taught in the 3rd grade instead of the 5th, and we just don't think that's right. 3 things that's important to me coming up, of course, public safety, the economy, and small government's my platform. That will always be my platform. But 3 bills that I'm going to work on is that bullying bill I was telling you about, social interaction, and to modify the death penalty. If I can do that, that's next year. That's what I'm hoping to do, and really would like to do that in special session if the call of special session is wide enough. But I can make you 2 promises. I will work hard as I can for you each and every day, and I'll never take this office for granted. Thank you for allowing me to serve.
This guy does a great job. He's one of the best. He comes in it, he knows what he's doing the minute he hits the ground, and he lives by what he says. And that's the most important thing we have to do. We have to have our honesty and our integrity out there for people to look at, and hopefully you'll think we're doing a good job. If you don't, you need to get somebody else. But I appreciate being here and appreciate the opportunity.
Senator Bell, would you please outline your district for us? Senator, I'm sorry, I called you
Swan.
Senator Bell. Senator Swan. Senator Bell had been the former senator. Due to redistricting, our new senator, Senator Swan, the district changed. So please give the people an idea of how large an area you cover. This is amazing. This man is so busy.
Oh, boy. I would say, just as a guess, 1/8 of the entire state probably is in this district, as far as the size of the district. Blount and Monroe are the 2 bigger counties in the district, but I guess everybody's equal in our process, regardless. If you're in the district, it doesn't matter if you're from a less inhabited area or not. But this, like I said, this is a great place to live, and what makes this country so great is that we're all participants in it. We all have an opportunity to choose to run for office. As a former chairman of a party, I can tell you, as a party, we're interested in electing our people, but the guy from the other side sometimes has the better idea than we do, and we need to listen when that's the case. But thank you for having me here today.
I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize we've had 2 of our board members, our POA board members in the audience. I meant to mention and welcome them in the beginning. Bob Brunetti is here, and so is Pat White with his wife Alice. Thank you so much for being with us. I'd also like to mention August 30th at the Yacht Club, U.S. Representative Tim Burchett will be there with the County Commission District 1, Chase Randolph. And so that is August 30th. That is the next legislative update that we'll have. Also would like to mention that Senator Haggerty's office is offering an internship. So check out his website online or go to his Facebook page, but he has applications open for internship through his office. So anyone whose children or college students or whatever are interested in that, it's a great opportunity. At this point, I'd like to just beg the audience's indulgence for about 2 minutes. As soon as I end this, we're going to take a group photo, and then they are yours. So allow the committee to come forward for a photo. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you so much for being here.
One thing, the Republican women are hosting a Lincoln Day dinner this Saturday at the Senior Citizens Center in Madisonville. I have tickets, they're $40 each, but the speaker is Becky Duncan Massey, and she's great. That's one of our Duncan family.
Thank you so much.